Wrapping up our conversation about entertainment on the Apple Vision Pro with Marty Jencius and Eric Bolden of the Vision Profiles podcast. This is Vision Pro Focus on MacVoices. MacVoices is sponsored by BetterHelp. Give online therapy a try at betterhelp.com/MacVoices and get 10% off your first month. I think we have identified almost a third category here that, and it may be the immersive category, and I don't know what else to call it, because we started off with something that is very consumption oriented. Then we have this immersion thing going on where you are interacting with things around. I am going to try to hack Eric's home video security cameras because I want to see him playing this Flappy Experience thing. If I get the URL, folks, I'll send it to you. Eric, as you were saying that, it's like, okay, this is some kind of weird bird flight simulator that sounds really intriguing. So I'm going to use that as a segue over into games and things that people would expect to be being used, having the Vision Pro used for. Some of the classic arcade games, driving games, first-person shooters, those kind of things. Have you all experienced any of those, and how do you feel about them? Or is that just not? Are those not your types of entertainment?
I'm not a big gamer, but some things that come up that look interesting, I'll download and try to play. There are some versions of like boxing games, or Eric, remind me, what are they on the Meta? What is it? Beat Saber. And there are kind of Beat Saber like versions where you have objects coming at you, and with the game that I was recently playing, you're punching them as they come at you, and so you have that three-dimensional feel of it. Um, and as I mentioned, puzzles are ones that you can do, um, and they're building on what they can do with the sensors that can work with your hands. There has been a push right now for third party uh, controllers, and there are some Kickstarters. I've gone in on them to get third party controllers, which will give a little bit more accuracy than what we currently have with just the visual representation of our hands and using those as cues. So there's some good possibilities for games. I don't spend a lot of time in it, and I don't think Apple's seriously looking at that niche for entertainment, even in the 3D world. I think developers are struggling a little bit in coming up with apps for that are gaming apps for Apple Vision Pro. They've kind of left that to the competitors to focus on, and they're looking more towards enterprise opportunities that they can do with it than gaming. But it's fun to try them, and I haven't gotten to the point where I'm waving my arms in the air and trying to fly through things. But there are you can see some carryovers from other devices that are being attempted to do in Vision Pro. One I stumbled across last week was a three-dimensional painting app where you could not just paint a flat surface, but you could stand in your room and you could make curvatures. And the demo of this showed a woman sort of creating a three-dimensional, almost looked like a Chinese dragon head, sitting there and floating in the middle of her room. Those can also be exported into 3D objects. I forget what the extension is for those, but then those can be easily shared to other people so they can put those objects in whatever space they're in. So there's some entertainment that's not necessarily competitive gaming, but it's entertainment for your own particular gaming enjoyment. There are some that are, I guess, multiple player games that you can do and that you can link up in certain environments. So you can do multiple player games in it. So you can invite other people who have headsets in to do that. We've talked before about In Space, which seems to be the environment where people go. That's the first stop for folks. And that in your little apartment has chess. It has a version of Battleship, and I think it now has a third game where it's not just one to one, but you can have 8 other people invited in, and it becomes a game with multiple players in it. So those kind of environments are pretty cool.
Eric, how about you? Games other than the floppy experience? Um, and I'm not even
So
sure
I'm
that
gonna-
qualifies as a game, but you know,
It most definitely is a game. I need ice for my head, but it's a game. I'm not good at it, but there's a virtual pool game where it puts a table out, and you can line up what is that stick thing, cube, yeah. I'm not a pool person, but I could play and hit balls and
Air
yeah.
hockey's pretty cool too. And you can play it against the machine itself. But it brought back my college days in the basement of the dorm, just playing air hockey all the time. Actually, kind of a motion memory that came back in playing the game.
There's a lot about the gaming that it's early. Like developers are kind of just getting a feel of what's possible. So some of the boxing games, they apply a skin to your hands. So when you look at your hands, you get gloves and there's, controls and stuff. They don't have it to the point where the controls do anything yet, but I think that's just a matter of time. There's a sort of a combination movie participation thing called What If on Disney, I believe. It's in the Marvel universe where you interact and, there's motions that you're taught to be able to cast, bolts of lightning or whatever. And that's
and
sort of game-like and
the
entertaining.
main character is sitting right in your room. It's really quite dramatic to have this 8 foot tall guy standing there giving you directions in your living room.
Do this and try not to die. There's something called Bomber Room, which is a little cannon, and they give you objects to kind of castles to blast, and you can fire off cannonballs in the middle of your living room, the middle of a conference room, whatever. That's relatively passive, but it is a game. And then there's a paper airplane game where you can launch an airplane. I still have not totally figured that one out. I could launch a plane, but then I'm not sure what to do next. And then let's see, what was the other one? Yeah, that's I guess. The other one I remember was that the In Space game, the Battleship type game. I did not do well in that game, but it was sort of neat to watch.
Yeah.
So you guys have been, we were joking earlier, but you've been feeding me things trying to tempt me. And I did want to ask about the golf experience that you all pointed out, as well as the Star Trek experience. And I'll but you tell me about those, because I don't have a Vision Pro, so I kind of made mental note. These are things I want to ask about, because it sounds like both of those would fall in the category of entertainment.
Yeah. The Star Trek experience was pretty cool. It's more of a fits into that museum kind of walkthrough thing that you had mentioned earlier in terms of that category, where you can go in and you can pull up old various versions of the Enterprise and you can expand it so it fills the room. You can find certain parts on that Enterprise that you can highlight and learn about. It'll have a menu that pops up with it. I'm not much of a Trek person. I think I skipped from the 60s to the movies. And but there are folks who know that very well and are very ensconced in all of the mythology and legend of Star Trek. And that is, Gene Roddenberry's vision is kind of placed in this particular game that is available. The other one you mentioned about golf is a game that there are golfing games. There are actual games where you can practice golf by using your hands and swinging. But the one that's the most impressive is one that has, I don't know, 1,000 courses already pre-plotted. And if you're a golfer and you have their little device you can that will GPS what your shots are and what you've done on the course, you can upload that and see your whole game played out, as scary as it might be, on this three-dimensional course that's sitting in your living room. You can look at heights and trajectories. You can look at distances. You can look at shots into the woods. All of that is recorded through the device you take with you, whether it's your phone or another device that records that information as you walk through the real environment and transforms it into this virtual environment that has the courses all available for you to do. So, folks who are fanatics about their game and want to go back and relive the joys and the horrors can upload that information and get to see the game that they played.
Hmm. That's really interesting. I'll be looking. Not that I care to revisit the ugly games, but it might be fun to revisit the good games. But just the idea that you can do that, it would feel like it's a pretty short step away from maybe having an Apple Vision Pro golf simulator that
Yeah.
could measure things. Now you'd require some extra hardware, some extra external hardware, but yeah, that's great. But
Would you
okay,
would you like us to send you some of the links for these and you can post them as part of the so listeners
yeah,
watchers can connect with those? Okay.
yeah, absolutely, because you guys know them, I don't, so I'd be kind of shooting in the dark. But it does bring us kind of back to something, Marty, that you had said about Kickstarters for some of the hand controllers for the Apple Vision Pro. Are we at a point now where you think that how much will that aid in the experience as far as some of these things? And I'm channeling, going back and thinking about Steve Jobs' comments about, that the best stylus is no stylus for the iPhone or iPad. And okay, we know that that was true for a time until things got a bit more sophisticated, until you needed more precise control. Now we're diving in here a lot later in time, but with a lot more knowledge and sophistication for some of these environments. Would hand controllers of some kind, tethered or not, be beneficial for some of the experiences you're both having?
I think the gamers are calling for it. I mean, we have a guy who's a kind of a regular guest on Vision Profiles, Daniel Burkholder, and he does programming and preparation necessary for those kinds of things. He's much more of a gamer. I don't think he's a super gamer, but he's the one that turned us on, or at least turned me on, to getting these looking at this Kickstarter. And it's the responsiveness, at least in the Kickstarter, that they're claiming that will make the gaming experience better for someone using a Vision Pro. And we can't get that same kind of responsiveness just with laser scanning our hands, believe it or not, and that being transferred into action within the game environment. So he's real excited about it. I think he speaks to a lot of gamers who are familiar with the competitor environments that have hand controllers, and even non-competing environments, that gaming environments that rely on hand controllers. And what I think caught Daniel about this Kickstarter was um, the specs, the tech specs on the responsiveness that these devices are going to have. They don't go cheap. I think they're like or $250, but it. He was saying that this will be a bridge for folks. You can do gaming in the environment now by doing a bunch of patches and using your PS2 controllers or whatever to be able to do that now. But the direct link, the direct association, and the speed on the tech, on the specs on this tech was real impressive.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. There are times I believe the S in September stands for stress. Summer is over, at least in my part of the world, so the unofficial vacation season has officially ended. The schools have reopened, and all those items that businesses sat on for the last 3 months now seem to be packed into a single month of meetings, webinars, seminars, dinners, and all sorts of other events, each one of them putting demands on you. Demands that, at times, can be overwhelming. And all that doesn't even begin to list any personal projects you might want to be doing. So how do you cope with it all? Just put your head down and plow ahead without regard for yourself? There's a better way, a BetterHelp way. BetterHelp is therapy that can teach you how to cope with it all and set boundaries so you don't go over the edge. Also, how to keep those boundaries in place so you stay more in control so you can be the best version of yourself. No, therapy isn't just for life's traumatic events. BetterHelp can address all those little things that can build up and let you get them under control before they reach the trauma level. BetterHelp runs on your schedule, is completely online, and is easy to get started with. A short questionnaire will have you paired with a licensed therapist in no time. And if, for whatever reason, the two of you don't hit it off, you can request a change at any time with no charge. Be the best version of yourself with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/MacVoices today and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/MacVoices. BetterHelp.com/MacVoices. Thanks to BetterHelp for sponsoring MacVoices. I'm just thinking that might help Eric with his Flappy experience. If he had controllers.
Yeah.
So games written specifically for the Apple Vision Pro have been getting better and better. It's like a game like Beat Punch, where objects come at you and you have to swing at them a particular way. That's been fairly accurate and fairly responsive. When the games first started coming through, there were people that were just trying to port the games, and then there were some assumptions made in the game where data would be sent from a controller to the game. It didn't have to figure it out. It just took the results from another object. That kind of game didn't work very well. And the accuracy was really pretty low. So certainly if you're trying to play a game written with some other assumptions, then real objects that your hand holds to send data back, like having a joystick for some games, just works better. That being said, I'm not really a gamer, so it hasn't totally hit me. Even the Flappy Bird thing, I seem to be able to flap just fine.
Okay.
Of course, that could be the concussion speaking, so
Yeah, well, but that too is interesting, that you feel like you have a virtual concussion from hitting a virtual pipe with your virtual head as opposed to a real pipe with your real head. What have we missed, guys? We're going to be doing this and revisiting some of these topics going along, but what other entertainment aspects of it? I'll go back and I will answer my own question, because Marty, you said something about oh, I'm so sorry, I've lost it, but the one where you interact with other people virtually across the world.
In space, I think.
In space,
Yeah.
That obviously could be an entertainment style thing,
Mhm.
as well as a productivity style, depending on how you do it. How is that going? I mean, this too. I keep drawing analogies. This feels like the early days of social media, when it was cool to log on to something and be chatting with someone who was somewhere else in the world, and then that became kind of passé because you could do it everywhere. But here it seems to have a different dimension to it. Are we going back to some of that? You think, and is it exciting, or do you think that'll burn out?
I think it's exciting, obviously, for people who have the headset. You can also engage in space to a degree using an iPad or iPhone, because there's an app for it that way. But I just see, in particular within space, I just see a lot of development over a short period of time with this environment, and they're doing a lot of things, and it's free for users right now. And it might change. They might find special environments that people can, like enterprise environments that have some level of security or closed, and you can close your environment. But they're I wouldn't doubt that they're not going to do this for free forever. That they're going to look at some enterprise way of recouping some money for their work. But it keeps growing, and it is the conversation starter for anybody who has a headset nowadays. That's the first thing someone who has a headset asks someone who just got a headset. Um, and I haven't found a competitive app within the environment. It's not like someone else is trying to do the same thing. Whereas other platforms, you see some of that, and it's all of them are done poorly. But in this particular environment, in space seems to be the one, and nobody is looking for deficit in that and saying, "Oh, we're going to create the app that's better because we're going to do this that it doesn't do." So that's still going, I think, very well. We talked a little bit about it on the last Vision Pro Focus, where we talked about the social aspect of it. What did we miss? I think um, my way of consuming entertainment is primarily through Apple TV on my headset. And the headset has reintroduced me to all the quality entertainment that Apple has created that I ignored because it was in the little desktop box. And, occasionally I'd see commercials for it. But now it just feels like a natural connection to it. Um, that is where I'm going for most all of my entertainment. And I can connect to other apps like Paramount and Hulu and other sources, and Netflix and Amazon. All of that can be connected through the headset. And so I have quite a plethora of different kinds of entertainment choices. And it's reintroduced me to taking some time in the evening, even if it's an hour, just to watch something for entertainment where I'm not doing something besides that. One of the areas that I think is also entertainment is immersion, and some of the immersive videos, I'll let Eric talk about that. Some of the new stuff that's coming out that are entertainment kinds of value.
Yes, I'm trying to remember what those were. Um,
Yeah.
so there's well, actually two big ones. So they've got the I think it's like 3 or 4 minutes from the Super Bowl. So a bunch of different clips, both behind the scenes and then on the field and in the stands. That probably I'm not really a football fan. So in the stands, that was really cool because you're sitting there and everybody around you is kind of going wild and is super excited, and you can see all of the activity as if you're sitting in the stands during the game while everybody's cheering, and then at one point you're on the field looking up at the stands, so you get to see viewpoints you can't normally see as if you were there. Again, you can't smell anything. I got no hint of beer, no hint of anything else. I kind of missed that, but and then you get to see players come out on the field. You get to see celebration in the locker room afterwards. I was kind of crying for the camera at one point with all the liquids from champagne going into the air and raining down, and until they show a little mini umbrella. But right over the camera, right? So, but it's again views that you can't normally experience that I just really appreciated. Then there's another new immersive experience, which was flying over the Hawaiian Islands, and they have somebody who's from there giving background on each of the islands and some of the primary differences as you kind of fly over, almost feeling like you're in a helicopter tour. And each one of these is relatively short, almost too short in a way, but short enough that you can go watch the thing and just focus on it and feel like you wished there was more. So, kind of a nice, you never felt like it was too much.
Yeah. That's elevated, and from what I understand, they're going to be doing flyovers of other areas. They started out with Hawaii, and it's pretty dramatic. There's some other immersive videos that have come out, and it looks like they're developing it into more of a series with National Geographic. The elephant videos are just incredible, and they tell the story of a elephant preserve in, I think it's Kenya, and they tell the story of how they take care of the elephants, how they bring their they bring their baby elephants there, who then leave at some point and come back and bring their second generation elephants to the place where they had this experience. It's and you are surrounded by them. It's really quite a experience that you can't get on a flat, on a two-dimensional screen.
You get the experience of standing in the middle of a path as a whole bunch of elephants are slowly walking towards you and going around you. So you get to see them coming straight at the camera and then walking around the camera. You can't really get any closer than that. It's very, very well done.
Have you, Eric?
And in the case,
have you tried flapping your arms while the elephants are walking around you?
Try not to call attention to myself. Didn't want to. But the other thing was, for the sequences that are in the air, there's like a balloon sequence, and then the flyover of Hawaii. They're well done. So I didn't get like I don't like heights, so I didn't get a sick feeling to my stomach. They were filmed carefully, so that it didn't make me sick. I appreciated that.
Yeah, I'll say one last thing, and this is a point of argument between Eric and I. We've got to know each other well enough for like a married couple now, where we find things to argue about. And I don't want 3 minutes of the Super Bowl. I want next Friday's baseball game, and I want 3D cameras around the park, and I don't care how bad it is. I want it, and I want to watch it through my headset. When I go to a ballpark, I sit in a stand. I'm in a static place. If I want to see a different point of view, I have to look up at the big screen to see what just happened in the last play. I want to be in the middle of that. And I think the technology and capabilities are there. They just haven't made that jump into live action sports. And Eric's like, well, it's complicated and it's going to take time. And it's like, I don't care. It doesn't have to be good. They can switch cameras in a ball game. They can switch 3D cameras in Apple Vision Pro environment.
Oh boy, we need to wrap this
Yeah.
up, but I'm so tempted to get into and I need to find someone to maybe join us for one of these that can talk about the aspects of creating digital video for the Apple Vision Pro, because I know their editing capability, 3D editing capabilities in Final Cut Pro, and I've seen plenty of 360-degree cameras out there that you could buy that are really affordable. And so you start stacking all these things on, and I'm with you, Eric. I think it's just a matter of time. But I'm also with Marty. I want it now. I'm impatient. So,
Well,
gentlemen,
I was just
no,
going to say,
yeah,
with the iPhone, you can film, footage that has depth to it, and then play it back later and watch it in the Apple Vision Pro, and it's not bad. But whatever distance you are from your subject, it when you play back, the screen or whatever has to be that same distance for it to look right. And that I don't think people have quite figured that out yet. How far away to get it so that it works when you're playing it back later, and then you want to make it really big or really tiny, or it's easy to get something that will play as a small video like right in front of you, and if you move it out a little bit further, all of a sudden it's not quite right, or where you get it too close and it feels like it's coming out at you, or when you look at it, there's a little too much motion, and then you have to have a bucket next to you every time you watch it. So it's close, but getting all of the videographers used to it, and I don't think there are editors really that are ready yet, which is, I'm guessing, why we're not seeing stuff coming out super fast. I'm ever hopeful though, but I'm willing to be patient.
Well, it's just like the 360 videos and some of that creation. That was a whole new skill set that needed to be learned by a new generation of editors. And so this feels like this will be yet another new skill set that needs to be done, because it's a little bit beyond 3D.
Mm-hmm.
So every time we talk, you guys just push me one step closer, because there's so many things that you're talking about, except for the Flappy experience, that I want to experience and I want to play with. So one of these days. Until then, though, they can find this series on MacVoices, but they can also find it on Vision Profiles. And so, Eric or Marty, I'll let you talk about what Vision Profiles is and why people should listen to that.
Eric,
go ahead, Marty.
I was gonna turn it over to you. Here, this is the married couple.
They're both
This
bashful.
is the married couple fighting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Vision Profiles is we recorded on Monday nights at 9:00 Eastern time. You're welcome to join us on the YouTube channel. We have a video version of it that then gets published on YouTube. We also have a audio version that's published and is part of the podcast that goes with it. We try to get people who have Vision Pro headsets. Someday Chuck will be on the show, and get some of their experience using it. We've also gotten developers to come on and talk about products they are working on. And more importantly, it's fun for us because we can ask them about what's the development process like? Because Eric and I are not programmers and not developers, and you kind of get some interesting stories from them. But primarily every week we're going through the news that has come out about Vision Pro, and we're looking at some apps that maybe new apps, maybe apps that have been out for a little bit that we stumbled across that listeners might be interested in learning about or trying. And it's a fun show to put together, and inspired by a lot of the people I get to spend time with now. So, and Eric's one of them. Eric, anything you want to add to that?
No, I guess the only other thing is the new OSs are all coming out, including the 2.0 version of for Apple Vision Pro, and that's going to open up a whole new range of excited users.
Yeah, everybody's excited about the new OS coming out, but everybody I know who has a Vision Pro headset already has the developer beta on it. So it sort of feels like they're coming out Monday. We should all be excited, but it's something we've been playing with for quite some time already.
Well, yeah, but that just shows, as far as I'm concerned, that just shows the enthusiasm of the audience right now for the folks that do have it. And I find myself starting to get infected with that excitement and want to be part of it. So maybe by the next time we talk, who knows? Who knows?
As soon as the software comes out, go ahead and order one, because then you start with the new software right at the beginning. You got 2 weeks to decide.
Yeah.
Thank you for that purchasing advice, Eric. On that note, guys, thank you so much. This is always a blast. We will do it again in a few weeks and see where things go from there.
Sounds great.
Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices. No, I keep doing that. This is Vision Pro Focus on MacVoices, and also hopefully on the Vision Profiles podcast. Until the next time, from Eric and Marty and me, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices, or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you MacVoices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CashFly at cashfly.com.